nothing does my heart better than when you have a member come in and because you've guided them through a hardship of finances and they come back and thank you for your help.
Welcome to Friday Five with Dave Adams. Today I'm going to be speaking with Connie Toensing, CEO of Chippewa County Credit Union, headquartered in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, a $33 million credit union. Connie started her career at 16 as a bookkeeper. And in 1997, about the time I arrived in Michigan 23 years ago, she was promoted as CEO of the credit union. She's seen the credit union grow from $1 million in assets to 33 million. And I'm looking forward to talking with Connie about the unique characteristics of mid-sized credit unions and credit unions in the UP and how they collaborate and work together. I'm a big fan of the credit union system in Michigan's Upper Peninsula because they truly walk the talk when it comes to cooperation and supporting one another. I know you're going to enjoy this interview with Connie Toensing, CEO of Chippewa County Credit Union. Well, Connie Toensing, welcome to Friday Five. I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you.
Thank you for including me, Dave.
So you and I chatted a little bit beforehand, and I mentioned some of the reasons why I'm looking forward to this conversation. Among them are you represent a relatively smaller credit union and really represent the nature or the characteristics of most of our credit unions in Michigan. And so those perspectives are important, but also you'll be our first guest from a UP credit union from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I have such tremendous respect for the way that our credit unions in the UP work together, find ways to compete, but still collaborate and work well together. So start with your career journey, how you got started in credit unions, and talk a little bit about your career path.
My start in the workforce began in McDonald's while I was in high school. And I had 5 years under my belt in fast food industry. And after working nights, weekends, shift work, and having a newborn son at home, I decided that I needed something with a little bit more of a regular schedule. So I applied at a credit union, this credit union I belong to now, Chippewa County Credit Union. And it was a $1 million credit union. I had answered the ad in the paper. The lady talked to me. She said, do you know where we are? And I'm like, yeah, I know where everything is. And I get off the phone and I'm in a panic because I have no idea where the office is. So we did find it because it was literally a little hole in the wall that I started. $1 million credit union. They had just started offering share draft accounts when I started.
When I was a league rep, when I started my career with the Utah Credit Union League, I got to go around to all credit unions, large and small, all over the state. And so many of the small credit unions really did start as very small, hole in the wall or part-time operation, hard to find. And they were really focused on their original fields of membership. So I can relate to that. I also kind of got a kick out of your story about the McDonald's transition. When I was in Washington State, I talked to a credit union CEO at a credit union in Walla Walla, Washington. And he mentioned that some of their best hires came from McDonald's and fast food restaurants because they were good at working under pressure and really put a great emphasis on service. So what have you kind of learned in that respect, working at a smaller credit union and now managing this credit union for, I guess, what is 23 years now, in terms of what you look for in frontline staff, what you look for in the way that your employees treat members?
Historically, on my hires that I've had, really, statistically, I would say coming from retail, fast food have been a good mix. They know how to deal with people. They're dealing with money, cash, maybe on a smaller scale. They are they're a little bit sales orientated, but also most retails and especially fast food are structured. They have policies, procedures, and they need to be followed. And if you can have a background in that, it's a good background to come into a small credit union where you have to wear a lot of hats.
And the UP Credit Union chapter and the credit unions in the Upper Peninsula, the way they work together, I think that they're kind of famous, not just in Michigan, but as I do my travels around the country and I tell them about the Upper Peninsula chapter of credit unions and their chapter annual meeting that used to draw 700 people. It's probably 500 or 600 now. So maybe speak to how and why credit unions in the UP are so good at collaborating and working together and supporting each other.
I think it's the nature of the UP, just in general. Geographically, we're challenged. We're spread out. So if we want to collaborate, especially before internet days, we had to make a point of making setting a meeting date, setting a time, and then allowing for travel time. Most of the in-person meetings that are held, me being at the eastern end of the UP, is an easy 3-hour travel for a 2-3 hour meeting. So 3 hours there, 2-hour meeting, and a 3 hours back. So we have learned to collaborate because there's purpose.
And have you seen it change? I mean, everything changes. Credit unions all over the state, all over the country are far more competitive with each other than they were before. We have overlapping fields of membership. And of course, the world is different. But have you seen much in the way of any deterioration of that cooperative spirit in the UP?
No, not on the level that I see in other areas. The matter of fact, we just had our board meeting via Zoom on the UP chapter level, and we are going to try to start some quarterly CEO via Zoom in January. Our first one is just because we're missing the collaboration and the network of others and to reach out. One of the bigger credit unions in my town here, Sault Ste. Marie, is Sioux Co-op Credit Union. And I reach out to them continuously, as they do too, whether it be fraud, whether it's procedural. We help each other. And I don't hesitate to pick the phone up or email.
Well, I will say that even though that's changed somewhat downstate and all across the country, the fact is it continues to be one of the hallmark differences of credit unions, the way that credit unions are willing to collaborate and share information and help each other. Maybe speak a little bit about how you perceive the differences in running a UP more rural credit union or a smaller credit union versus larger credit unions downstate. What are some of the differences that you see?
The difference I see in our community as versus hearing about others is the foot traffic that comes in. Even during our lobby shutdowns during COVID, we still had some of our senior members that still felt this was part of their daily routine to come to the credit union and get their money out through the drive-through, and then couldn't wait for our lobbies to come in, and we're just part of their routine. And I think when you get in the more popular areas or populated areas, those areas people are just busy. They're going from one to the other. And our members come into our lobbies and they're coming in for conversations too.
So when you look at some of the credit union leaders who you respect, who you work with, and your own leadership journey, and you think about leadership lessons, maybe specific to mid-size and smaller credit unions, what are some of the leadership characteristics that you think are particularly important or things that you've learned along the way?
I knew I had some notes prepared on this, and then I'm like, oh no, what was I going to say? My leadership lessons that I've learned along the way is the collaboration and learning from others, whether it be your employees or whether from another credit union, and listen and try to learn from their experiences and try to glean the best knowledge out of that and then portray that.
I hear people talk a lot about listening and humility, and I know I've been coached over the years. I haven't always been the best listener. Don't smile now, given that you've worked with me as a board member. But there's a balancing act because you want to be that leader who tries to solve problems and has the answers. But it's what you mentioned is so important, and it's part humility and it's probably large part humility and empathy, but developing those listening skills and truly working to recognize that other people have great perspectives and most likely in most instances are going to contribute to the decisions that have to be make. It's just so important. um, and that probably goes back, that probably segues nicely to the credit union difference. We talked as we started out here about whether we're hiring employees from other service industries like fast foods or not. What are the important elements for making sure that we're living the credit union difference? What is the credit union difference to you and your team at Chippewa County Credit Union?
It goes back to the credit union philosophy that I was brought into the field with, is the people helping people. Um, and as I believe all cooperative organizations do, it's a group of people that are trying to help for a general cause. And with the credit union, people helping people, we're helping the community. We are helping help them make financial decisions. And it just contributes to the success of the community.
I read something that you wrote about the satisfaction that you get out of sometimes telling people, helping them make wise financial services decisions. They might not always like the advice, but the satisfaction that you've gotten out of seeing someone make better decisions and get ahead financially. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yes, when my 36 years here at the credit union, and probably the last whatever, as I became a loan officer and earned the respect of the members, then where they would come in and they'd want a loan, and to tell that person, no, it's not in your best interest. You need to look for a less expensive home. You need to find a less expensive automobile. And some of those members would listen. Some of those members wouldn't listen. And you would see a lot of those members fall into financial hardship because of those decisions. We're in a society where people want things now, and they want whatever it takes to get it at that moment, not thinking futuristically. So I've had members come back to me and thank me for talking them, or their daughter is bound and determined she wants that Ford Mustang car, and she has a side job and she can do this as a young teenager. And so a lot of times I've talked to the parents and they'll say, okay, am I on your side or am I on her side on this? And I've played the hard person of, you do not need this car right now. Do you know this? Have you priced out insurance? And sometimes that perspective from not mom or dad really rings home. And nothing does my heart better than when you have a member come in, and because you've guided them through a hardship of finances, and they come back and thank you for your help. And I've instilled that in my staff.
That's well said. And that really segues to another question I want to ask and get your perspective on. I've observed most credit union leaders, large and small, understand the importance of smaller credit unions. And I rarely hear otherwise, but with the mergers and consolidation, I have on occasion heard someone say, well, those small credit unions, they're not going to be around. They just need to go away because they're not professional or whatever. But why is it important that we continue to have smaller credit unions in your mind?
I think we need to take time for the people. People have concerns and people get busy in their lives. And as I've tried to instill in my staff and my friends, everybody in their careers have a specialty. And I can't be a nurse. I'm in finances. I'm in with numbers. And I have some expertise that I can share with others that maybe makes their life better.
And when you said that earlier, it's the reason I asked that question, because it strikes me that credit unions have different sizes and different service orientations. They all serve a unique purpose. But I think in some ways it's harder for really large credit unions to have frontline staff who are stretching as much to really understand the needs of the member and to say maybe you shouldn't get this loan, or maybe you should think about pulling back a little bit on your borrowing. It's harder for larger credit unions because I think it's harder to empower those employees to do that. Whereas in a smaller credit union, you're more intimate with your members, and maybe you're in a better position to do that.
When the regulators come in for our annual examinations, when they've been able to be on site, can see that we know our membership. When the members are coming in the door, we know the community businesses, we know what industries doing well in our community. So if you're employed by that industry, then your financial future is secure. So there's a lot of loans that are written out of this credit union that we call them character loans. And that's like, this member has paid us, we know him, he's not going anywhere, his father's lived here for, and it's been a little hard for me to change over to the new people in the community and some of the new industry, thank goodness, coming into our communities, that people are so mobile and we don't know if they're staying or they're going and lending to. And then we have to just depend on, well, credit scores for one, but instincts and lending to people.
Well, I've heard some of my former colleagues, when I got started in this business, talk about the good old days before deposit insurance, where it was much easier for credit unions to make character loans and to stretch. And now with regulation and federal deposit insurance, it's tougher. It really is a lot tougher to do that. But I think that is one of the credit union differences, to do that responsible lending and to really, work for the best interests of members. And I think it comes back to trust. And I think that's another thing that small credit unions can excel at, because you're closer to your members, right? So I don't know if you have any perspectives on how your members maybe trust credit unions more than they do banks. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
I know that when the market failed in 2008, the amount of deposits that came in, and then through COVID, we've taken in a lot of deposits, and it's important to our members of our credit union, and I am sure of others, that they want to know where their money is and they want to know where it's safe. And they want, it's just a security blanket for them. And through personalities and lending decisions and communications in the community, we try to inspire that in people.
Yeah, and so we're in another extraordinary cycle with the COVID economy. And I know I'm going to overgeneralize this, but in the UP probably never gets to experience, a really strong, robust economy like different parts of downstate or different parts of the country. So you're probably inherently pretty conservative, through good times and bad. But whether it's a Great Recession and a housing-led recession, or now this environment that we're in, what are you seeing that's different, you and your colleagues up in the UP, in terms of the way you're approaching lending and serving your members? Are there extraordinary needs that you're seeing right now?
The membership for our credit union specifically is pretty level. We service corrections officers, the school systems, and the county government are our primary. So no big highs and lows with industry.
There are pros and cons to having a credit union with just a few core sponsors like you do. And the challenge can be, obviously, if your sponsor experiences financial stress and layoffs. But the real strength is when you go into tough economic times and you have a prison system and county employees, you're less vulnerable to some of the swings. And
Even
that's also, I think, yeah.
I think through the whole UP, which but it's hard for the Detroit area and the Lansing area with the car industry and that. And across the UP, when down below would be experiencing high unemployment rates, we're like, that's nothing for us, because it's just the way it was, either it be tourism or logging or farming, however it goes. So we're trying to lend to the members by listening to their needs. We did have people come in at the beginning of COVID and thinking, because we were giving small need-based loans, they were needing them just for the sake of getting a loan. And we spoke with them and said, no, this is not the purpose. So we just try to be honest with people and listen with them. And I believe that is how the whole UP, I don't know, I think it's all credit unions. I think that's what we try to instill in the members. We'll listen and see what we can do to help you. People have to learn to help themselves, though. I've learned that through the years. And I can't feel guilty if I help John Doe and give him advice and he doesn't follow it and then fails and then comes to me and wants to blame me. Then, it's got to sell his
Yeah,
story again.
well said. There's a limit to how paternalistic we should try to be or think we should be. The reality is people do need to take responsibility for their own financial well-being. And something you were saying, it struck me that, we take for granted that the average person, a lot of people, let's just say a lot of people don't have a lot of financial education savvy. And so where that trust becomes so important, it's not just about trusting the credit union as a safe place for their money, but trusting that the credit union isn't going to put them into a loan or loans that make it tough for them to get ahead financially. And I think smaller credit unions are in a unique position to engender that trust and provide that service. Well, so let's transition to the last question and just learn a little bit more about Connie Toensing when you're not working long hours in the office. What are your outside interests, your personal interests and passions?
You had posed that question, so I had a little bit of time to talk about my passion, things I love outside of the workplace. And my friends are my passion, my family. COVID has brought my family bit closer together because of when there was shut down, then you hang out with family rather than going from this function to another. My friends, I volunteer. I love the game of golf. I love the game of baseball. I used to play softball back in the day, and then I aged out of that practice, so I follow it. And my husband taught me how to shoot pool, so I say I can hold my own on the pool table and challenge some good players some days. But I
Do you
like to
have
have fun.
that sounds great. Do you have extended family outside your Sault Ste. Marie and UP geography?
I'm lucky enough yet to still have both my parents that live here near me, and my husband and I just celebrated our 13-year wedding anniversary. I have two sons, two daughter-in-laws, a stepdaughter, a stepson, and we share 5 grandchildren. So
Wow, that's wonderful. And
one grandchild lives closer to you, Dave, than me, but the others
yeah,
are up here.
that's not too bad though. And what I was going to comment on, I think something that's been tough for all of us because of COVID is where we have extended family and friends. The traveling has been tougher, and it's been really hard to stay as close to extended family. But having them close geographically, like yours is a real blessing. And I know you mentioned baseball and football, and I know you didn't intend to skip over your your support for the Lions and the Tigers, right?
Right. No, I didn't intend to. So I've been a faithful fan all along, and I usually say someone has to root for them.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but we support the home team. All right, so here's your chance to do a little tourism plug or plug to the visitors that might come to the UP. So, are the winters as bad as everybody says they are in the UP?
Depends on what week it is, I would say. Uh, yes, we plow our roads and we don't need to put chains on our tires. And if a storm front comes through and with lake effect, that is, but the next day it usually is clear. The roads are clear. So.
Well, Connie, it's been great having the conversation. It's been very interesting, as I said, learning more about your perspective on kind of the unique challenges and positives associated with running a smaller credit union in the UP, and certainly didn't disappoint. As I said at the beginning, I brag up our UP credit unions everywhere I go because it's such an impressive example of how credit unions can and should work together. And you guys get a lot done because you do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great conversation with Connie Toensing, CEO of Chippewa County Credit Union. I really appreciated the story of her beginnings in the fast food industry, realizing that there's clear similarity between great service in any service sector, including fast food, versus how credit unions focus on excellent service for their members. As she said, she started at the age of 16 as a bookkeeper and never looked back, and became CEO in 1997, where she's been leading the credit union for the past 23 years. I loved her perspectives about leaning on your employees and being a good listener and working to respect everybody's opinions to help make better decisions, and the importance of knowledge and lifelong learning and collaboration. I loved hearing how credit unions in the Upper Peninsula, no matter how much they compete with one another, they find ways to cooperate and collaborate for the good of all. It really is a great story. So thank you to Connie Toensing again. Thank you for listening. We look forward to future episodes of Friday 5. If you have an interest in being on, please let us know. Thanks again for listening.